Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 580. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. So this is normally where I have some great witty banter planned, and I wanted to throw it out there, but I feel like we have something more important to talk about than like checking in on the weekend or talking about random movie things. So we should just like skip the witty banter and get to the good stuff.
Okay, what's the good stuff?
Well, there's a fourth person here today.
There is. I agree, Kyle. There is a fourth person here. Do you want to introduce them?
I would love to introduce this fourth person.
All right.
By the way, Zach is so disappointed by this intro right now.
Yeah. I am. But just happy to be here.
Oh,
Not
good.
disappointed
Good.
in the guest. Just disappointed
no.
in the intro.
Not in the intro.
Well, apparently it was Ari Aster, wasn't it?
Yes,
James
you're right. Ari Aster was supposed to be here. He had to cancel last minute, unfortunately, but we brought in the next best thing to Ari Aster, and that is friend of the show, Josh. Welcome, Josh.
G'day. Welcome to me. I'm stoked to be here.
Well, welcome to you too.
You know, and welcome to me also.
Welcome to me.
Yeah.
No, I am thrilled
Guys,
to be
welcome
here.
to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're so glad to have you here. You know, we were talking on the Discord. There is a Cinerealist Discord server, if you didn't know that.
Mhm.
And we were talking on the Discord server and said we needed a Joaquin fanatic on the show. And luckily you fit the bill perfectly.
So what is the criteria though for a fanatic? Is there a specific criteria for a super fan, or how does it work?
Absolutely. There's 3 criteria to be a
Yep.
Joaquin superfan.
Okay.
1, you have to have seen every Joaquin Phoenix film.
Okay, check. Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
You have
yep.
to be able. Yeah, that's number 1. You have to be able to spell Joaquin backwards perfectly on the first try.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see right now if you can do that.
No, I'm gonna
I could see
fail.
him. Okay. All right.
I'm not sure I can spell it forwards.
I
N-
definitely.
IUQAOJ.
Is that right? I think that's right.
Kyle, this is. Are you vying for the superfan role of Joaquin Phoenix?
I'm just trying to cover the criteria that I can. You know, if
Okay.
Josh can't pull out the spell backwards, then I'm going to be the ringer for him. So
And the third criteria is you have to know what he's credited as in his performance in Space Camp.
Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty easy. Leaf Phoenix.
Yeah, Lee
Yeah.
Phoenix. Yeah.
now here's the question: which is the birth name, Joaquin or Leaf?
Joaquin.
Yes. Yep.
100%.
Really? Leaf was just like a hippie nickname his parents gave him, or what?
He wanted to have a name more like his siblings. So you got Summer, River, and yeah, Joaquin, but he wanted to be Leaf to sort of fit in.
Leaf. When did he drop the leaf, so to say?
In fall.
Just before To Die For.
Okay.
Yeah, which was he
Nice.
was like mid-teenager, late teenager.
I knew there was a reason we brought you on, Josh. I've never even heard of the movie To Die For, so have you guys heard
To
of
Die
that?
For? Gus Van
Yeah.
Sant?
James, you've seen it.
I have.
Haven't you seen all the Gus Van Sant movies?
No, not all of them.
Oh.
To
well.
Die For is amazing. Yeah, Joaquin, he kept getting typecast. He kept getting sent scripts that were just the same kid roles, and he was like, "Stuff this, I don't want that." So he quit acting even when he was a kid, and then River talked him into acting again, and then he took
Wow.
on the role in To Die For, and he was that was his first explosive kind of performance.
Is that the one with Gwyneth in it?
Nicole Kidman.
Oh, okay. That's right.
According to Letterboxd, I have seen To Die For, and I liked it 3 stars.
Is that the media satire one?
Yes.
Yeah, that one's good.
It's fantastic. And
Yeah.
Matt Dillon, is that the other actor in it?
Yeah.
Which I
Mhm.
love
think
him.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I've only seen 8 Gus Van Sant movies. It's not that many.
Yeah, it's pretty poor.
Yep.
So, Josh, where in Australia are you calling us from?
So Queensland is the state. Sunshine Coast. I don't know if you've heard of Noosa or Byron Bay. Have you heard of Byron Bay? Okay,
Can't say I
so
have. Nope.
Nice, sunny, always good weather. Yeah, it's good. But I lived in
Sounds
Melbourne
great.
for 10 years. So I grew up here, moved to Melbourne for 10 years, which is Victoria, right down south, like the south of
Mhm.
Australia, and then moved back here about 5 years ago.
So when you say here, where in the continent is here?
So East Coast,
Okay.
and yeah, like it's like halfway right in the middle of Australia, basically.
How
Nice.
close are you to the giant pineapple?
Oh yes, I am 10-minute drive.
What? That's crazy. Very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Not that
I don't even-
exciting.
I went in 7th grade, and that is the main thing I remember from that part of Australia was the
Oh.
giant pineapple.
Classic.
Yeah, very exciting. 10 minutes away. All right. Next time you pass it, will you take a picture and send it to me?
Oh heck yes.
Okay. Love it.
Memory lane
Ideally-
for Zach.
Ideally with a Cinereelists sticker or something.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so just
cool.
carry something around.
Could you please vandalize this pineapple in the name of Cinereelists?
That's a world landmark. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about Beau is Afraid, which is the latest Ari Aster film starring Joaquin Phoenix. Should be an interesting discussion. Anything we need to talk about before we get into it?
No, I am curious though, Josh. Do you know how many Joaquin Phoenix movies you've seen?
37, I think.
37.
Wow.
That's amazing. How many are there?
According to Letterboxd, there's 61, but they include like documentary mentions and stuff like that. So
That's all main features. That's not any documentaries. So that's just films. I've seen pretty well every documentary he's either produced or been in, except for Earthlings, because I don't know, I'm a bit nervous about watching that one, but I need to get to that.
Is that the one about like animal conditions?
Yes. Yep. He does a commentary for it. Yeah.
Oh, that looks brutal.
But his first film was a movie called Backwards. It was like an after-school special on dyslexia, and him and River star in it. And it's not really well made, but it's a real oddity to see them together in like such an early role.
sure.
Yeah.
One more thing. And I don't know what you're going to say here. I'm hoping you back me up on this, but I've tried multiple times. Doesn't seem to work. Why should Zach specifically watch I'm Still Here?
Oh my gosh. Are you a fan of Andy Kaufman as a comedian? I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, for sure.
So I feel like Joaquin is taking on a bit of Andy Kaufman, a bit of a character there. And I think it's like Joaquin's probably best performance. Like, it's just
Oh, wow.
insane. Like, seriously, like 2 years. What are we talking about? Talking about, I'm Still Here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's wild. Like 2 years, I think he went through the transformation, and like, what actor would put his whole career on the line like that? Like, you got to see it.
Yeah,
I
he
feel like
practically tanked
James-
his career doing that.
Yeah.
I feel like James has presented this not as an Andy Kaufman bit, but as it like, no, he was for real serious about starting a rap career.
Here's the thing. The line is so blurry. I think if he was actually good at rap, he probably would have become a rapper.
Yeah, it
Do
was.
you disagree,
it was
Josh?
All planned. It was all planned, like 100%. He had a few people in on it. Even I think Ben Stiller was in on it. And yeah, no, all just acting.
I don't know.
See,
No,
yeah,
I heard. I heard.
I'm much more likely to watch it if it's a bit.
Yeah, I heard an interview with him recently, and he was definitely making it out like it was a bit. Like we were trying to fool people. Like this is performance theater in a sense. I don't think he was serious whatsoever. I know, James, you seem to believe that, but nothing that I've heard from him has ever made it seem like I was trying to do something and then I made it into a bit. I think it was a bit from the get-go.
This is
Well,
my
what-
this is my point. It's so good at towing that line that I probably will never accept that it's 100% a bit.
Well,
That's
what
how
he
it
has
is.
said, that he was so fascinated by reality TV and how so many people just believe that it's just real TV,
Mhm.
that he was
Like me.
that he just like stepped into that and wanted to make something similar to see how people would react.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think it's brilliant.
Me too. I've seen
All right,
it
well,
twice.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's not very
That's
pleasant.
awesome.
Like it's not an easy watch, really.
Is it just really cringy?
Yeah, they get up to some feral stuff, and I don't know. It's good.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Can I recommend a podcast
Sure.
on here? Has anyone listened to the latest A24 podcast episode?
With him and
Yes.
Ari Aster.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's required listening when you
Yeah.
watch Beau is Afraid.
Why? Because it's like two guys who like don't want to be talking on a podcast.
I didn't get the sense that they didn't want to be talking. It's just two people that worked very closely with each other, and they're also very honest with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then talking about the experience of making the film, I just found it very interesting to listen to. And also, Joaquin is borderline incoherent.
Yeah. I was amazed at just like how hard it was for them to make, like, and how exhausting it was. That's what
Yeah.
surprised me.
It sounds like he did a little bit of that to himself with that clip and everything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But hey, method, go method.
Definitely. Well, speaking of a clip, let's start talking about Beau is Afraid. It's in theaters now. We're going to talk about it right after this clip.
Am I dead?
No, you've been healing so quickly. And no organs were hit, and your bleeding was really mild.
What this is
This is a room in our house, but it's your home for as long as you need. My name's Grace. Oh, this is Roger. This is my husband.
Hey, Kai. Welcome back. Thought you'd sleep in, huh?
Roger's a very respected surgeon. He's the one who dressed and treated your wounds.
You're a lucky man.
What was this?
That's my little assistant health monitor. Keeps track of your condition.
That was a good clip. Wow. That was really good.
Blew my mind.
James, you can pick him.
Thank you.
My
I-
goodness.
you know.
There's better. It was fine.
No, that
I'm
was-
surprised you chose that one, James, over the other one we talked about earlier.
I didn't really choose it. It's probably the only copyright-free clip on YouTube. There's a good chance that was chosen for me, but we'll move on. Beau is Afraid is a 2023 American surrealist black tragicomedy horror film, written, directed, and produced by Ari Aster. The movie stars Joaquin Phoenix, Patti LuPone, Nathan Lane, Amy Ryan, Stephen McKinley Henderson, Parker Posey, amongst others. The official IMDb plot synopsis for Beau is Afraid is: following the sudden death of his mother, a mild-mannered but anxiety-ridden man confronts his darkest fears as he embarks on an epic, Kafka-esque odyssey back home.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Yep. That's kind of what the movie's about, I guess.
Odyssey's the right word because I was
Yeah.
thinking of like the Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you think?
Sure. Before we get into it,
Wasn't too subtle for you?
This discussion is going to be in two parts. Hopefully, the first part will be mercifully short because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Beau is Afraid. But that first part will be spoiler free. We're going to give broad thoughts on what we thought about the movie in general. And then hopefully we will rapidly move into a spoiler chat where we will discuss the movie as openly and honestly as possible. So, before we get into the spoilers, though, let's give our broad thoughts on Beau is Afraid. What'd you guys think about it? Why don't we start with our guest for this week? Josh, what'd you think?
Well, I have many thoughts.
Okay.
Definitely hits on like a lot of cylinders for me. I love surrealist films. I love surrealism in films. I love psychological films. I love films that follow like one character. Absolutely love films that take big swings, and I think Beau is Afraid does all of these things. I love Mother. Synecdoche, New York is like an epic film that I love. So definitely hits all the right points for me. It had like a big unexpected thing happen in it that I've never seen in a film before. So yeah, I think it has a clear message, surprisingly, which I'm not going to say here. I'll save that for spoilers. Each section of the film, like I could have just had a whole film in that section, which I thought was awesome. I love Amy Ryan, so I love this. I have no idea what you guys think of the film. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. I loved it.
Nice. Before we jump into that, as a longtime listener of the show, what do you think we will say about it? What do you think Kyle thinks about this movie?
I think James will love it. I think Zach's too unpredictable. He'll either think it's awesome or will not like it at all. I think Kyle will have mixed feelings.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Kyle, why don't you go first and then I'll go and then we'll let Zach follow up with the most unpredictable opinion.
I'm very easy. I like to live in happy worlds where everyone gets along.
Yeah. I have an idea
Ideally,
on how
there's a
Zach felt on
horse.
this movie, but
Yeah.
I might hate this movie.
Like Miranda July level hate or
I have not
confusion hate?
I have not been turned off by a movie so quickly since everything, or You and Me and Everyone We Know. Like
Sure.
this is that level of discomfort and unenjoyment.
Okay.
Nice.
From that first half hour is just over the top direness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it doesn't really get much better from there. There's a lot to talk about in this movie. If I was not watching this for a podcast, I would have left because there was better things I could have done with my time for 3 hours. Like after that first half hour, I'm like, I don't think this is worth my time whatsoever. However, there are people out there.
2.5 hours left of this.
I had 2.5 hours to do this. I do this podcast, so I'm gonna suffer through this, and suffer I did. Now there are moments I liked, so it wasn't all doom and gloom. But overall, what are we doing, Ari Aster? Like I just looking at like the guy who did Hereditary, the guy who did Midsommar, which are not perfect movies, but movies I like. And then this is, I don't know. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about that is all just spoilery. So I'm going to leave it right there. James?
I mean, Josh pegged me pretty well. I love this. I thought it was great. I understand people who don't particularly like it or like living in that world. I completely understand that. I think it's by design, certainly, that world is created, an uncomfortable world. But like, as much as I like watching movies of like other cultures that I will never be a part of, this is one of the first movies I've seen that put me at like a certain state, like mental state, that I fortunately do not have to live in full time. And I just loved that visualization of how people who live in that state just go through life and like their perspective on things. And I also grew up with fairly stable parents And that made me thankful for them, I would say. Like we're not going to go into a therapy session, but like my mom sometimes can manipulate, but she is 100% forgiven compared to the mother in this movie. I mean, there is no comparison between like somebody who does it in a loving way, even if it's not always the best way, and someone who does it purely for selfish reasons. And we will go more into that in spoilers, I'm sure. But I also really enjoy messy movies. I enjoy movies that like absolutely should not have been made. Like, who gave anybody the money to make this?
Yeah, who greenlit this and
it's insane.
saw this finished product and said, "You got it."
Not only did they see it,
No
but
notes.
They cut an IMAX print of it, which I saw in IMAX
really?
laser.
Oh, you saw it in IMAX. Oh, jealous.
IMAX laser.
And it was glorious. 3 hours of humongous screen with awesome audio. Like the
And it went
birth
by
scene.
quick for me.
Yeah. The birth scene at the beginning in IMAX was like, wow. I mean, it was, and I'm not just talking about the visual.
It was like being birthed.
I'm not just talking about the visual. It was like the audio in that theater was like they over designed the audio for that scene. And I was 100% there for it for sure. I like movies like Southland Tales and some of the ones that Josh mentioned. I liked all the vibes of this movie. It felt like a weird combination of my favorite weird movies.
Yeah.
Sorry to Bother You. There was shades of that in here. The recent that. Trying to think of ones that Josh didn't mention that came to mind. Yeah, it's just I liked all of it.
So
I'm so happy.
like, I don't mind uncomfortable movies. Uncut Gems, like that movie.
Mhm.
Mother, really like that movie. Well, the one you just mentioned, Sorry to Bother You, great. This movie was trying to be all those things and just completely missed the mark. Like, completely.
And I absolutely,
yeah. So that's what this reminded me of. As I was watching this movie, I was in the same headspace as when I was watching I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and we all know how much I love that movie.
Yeah.
All
see,
right.
I like movies that make big swings, even when they don't hit home runs, for the most part. I think if the intention is there and I can feel like the craft coming through, then I will forgive when, it's not 100% a home run. And even though I did love what this movie was serving, like I said, I respect anybody's opinion on this, even if it doesn't even come close to sharing mine, because I think it's that kind of movie that I get it. I also think it's the kind of thing that, although it sounds like Kyle will never rewatch it, if he did, he'd probably find things in it that he didn't find the first time.
Yeah.
But that's
I got
enough.
better
about
things to
what
do with
I
3
think about
hours.
it.
Like, Kyle, did you notice what was up in that attic? You might have missed it in the corner in that
It was
attic.
pretty subtle.
Yeah, if I had
no spoilers, no spoilers.
if I had seen it in IMAX laser, maybe, but it was tough. It was kind of hard to see it. Yeah,
It was pretty big in my theater.
I've seen bigger.
James and Kyle, what do you think I thought?
I
I'm just
think
curious.
Zach, I think you hated this movie.
I think Zach liked it. Maybe not like the way I'm glowing over it, but I think he did like it.
All right. To be honest, you're both wrong. I loved it.
Nice.
Oh no!
Yeah, so good.
This
On an
This-
island.
this
Great.
movie is
Love it.
possibly a masterpiece, and I think it will be thought of.
Masterpiece.
I think it will be thought of and studied for years.
My
I
God.
think honestly it will go down as like something that will be talked about.
I
and
thought I
studied.
was being hyperbolic.
Oh, I think people will talk about it. I don't think it's a masterpiece.
This
Maybe like
movie has
great fiascos will be talked about.
this movie has 1,000 great little choices and interesting little things to land on. And there is so much going on. The acting across the board is fantastic. Everyone is amazing. Especially one character we'll talk about in spoilers. Incredible. Oscar-worthy performance from one character. I loved the episodic nature of this. I was so glad because no story had a chance to get stale, and then it would move on to like a kind of a new set piece and a new thing. And each one gave me totally different things, different vibes, and it never got stale, always kept my interest. For a 3-hour movie, I did not check my watch until like 2:40. And I was
checking so much.
Yeah, you were texting me.
I was texting
during
you,
it.
yes.
Yeah.
Me and the other two people in my theater.
Now, is this a movie that I'll recommend to anyone that I know in real life? Absolutely not. Of course not. This movie is crazy and ridiculous, and I don't want to be responsible for anyone going to see it. But this movie is, I think, it's just, this is why films exist, is for people to create, right? Something that can't exist in any other medium. And I think you have to be just a very interesting, perhaps troubled, creative person to create this. And I'm very impressed by what he came up with. I think it's an achievement. Super interesting. Definitely enough to talk about in spoilers for sure. But I left the theater being like, wow, you don't get that very often with movies, right? Something that's just solely unique, right? It does have Mother vibes. It has Synecdoche, New York vibes. It's got, Buñuel kind of vibes, like of surrealist cinema and stuff like that. But it's interesting. I thought it was really good.
Zach, I'm so happy to hear that you liked Joaquin's acting, because I know you don't like his, like, when he mumbles and stuff. You're not the biggest fan of him sometimes. And I was like, thinking, Zach's going to hate his acting, but you liked it. So I'm like so happy.
I did. It fit the role so well, for sure. Yeah. I'm not a huge Joaquin fan or his acting or even him as a person.
I'll convince
you. I'm more than willing to be convinced. He strikes me as one of those guys that like makes films because he likes making them, but like doesn't like watching them. That's how he strikes me.
Yeah.
And I tend to gravitate to the actors that are like love their movies and they're, it loves the whole deal. But he's great in this, and everyone's great in this. Yeah, but he wasn't the performance I thought was Oscar worthy. We'll get into it in spoilers.
Was it in the attic? Was that the performance?
It was a pretty big performance.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was. So do we want to letterbox this before we jump in?
Let's do that. Yes. I gave it a 4.5.
I gave
Kyle.
it 4.5, but see what happens on rewatch.
All right.
Zach.
Are we just going in random order? Is this what we're doing?
James already started the random order by going first. So
I'm between a 4.5 and a 5. I'll decide by the end of this episode.
I'm between a 1 and a 1.5.
Nice. I love it. So good.
All right, Kyle. I hope you come with guns blaring because I need to get your perspective.
I know. See, here's the thing. It's gonna be like 3-on-1 here. So I'm gonna do my best to defend why I hated this movie, but
that's fine.
Can I ask?
All right, so
a non-spoiler question. What was your audience like?
Tiny.
Mine was great. I saw it Saturday night opening weekend, so I'm about a week out on this movie. And I'd say it was 75% full. And when the movie ended, one guy clapped, nobody else clapped, everybody else was just silent.
Yeah.
Silently deciding whether they should leave or not. And we'll talk about why. But it was I think people were a little stunned. There was one guy though who was really, probably the guy that clapped, really enjoying the movie. I mean, he was like vocal throughout it, and it was great to see for sure.
I had a pretty bad theater experience actually. I did have a lot of people in my theater. It's a very small theater, but probably 30 or 40 people. So I would say a good crowd. But at the ceiling of my theater, there was either a speaker that was broken or an AC that was broken. Because there was constant loud white noise coming from the ceiling.
That's just the movie.
No.
They just want to make uncomfortable, so they just piped in humming and hissing the whole time.
Considered that briefly. Like there might be some point where it just goes away and that's the movie.
Mhm.
But no. And it was extremely loud, constant white noise coming just from one section of the ceiling. And where I actually switched seats to get further away from it, which didn't really solve the problem. But there's moments of this movie that are very quiet, especially in the first set piece. And it was super annoying. Luckily, like by about an hour in, the movie was interesting enough that I think I blocked it out. And every now and then I'd become aware of it again, but it was incredibly annoying.
You're talking about the movie, correct?
No.
Oh no, the AC. Okay.
Yeah.
I would have rather listened to 3 hours of AC hum than
No, that's absolutely not true.
In the AV Club, they reviewed this, and the reviewer at the end said, like, watching this movie is like listening to a Slayer album. Like, you enjoy it for a while, but after a while, you just want to turn it off. And I was like, man, I wish this was 3 hours of Slayer. That'd be so much better.
Yeah, my theater was pretty packed and heaps of laughs, like a lot of people laughing. And yeah, at the end, just nobody got up, just dead silent.
Sure.
And people stayed for the entire credits in my theater. Most of the theater did.
Yeah, wow.
Most of my theater did too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
All of my theater left right away, all three of us. So I'm going to say I did
You
not
missed the stinger then.
Was there a stinger?
No.
I if there was, I'm like, I'm not staying for this. I got to get out of here. There was not a peep from me or the two people behind me the entire time. I think maybe I let out one like as in this could be a funny moment. But I want to say like the three of us, it was just dead silence. Like I didn't realize they were sitting right behind me. I knew they were behind me. I didn't realize that they were literally like right behind me until I stood up and there was these other two people. And then I said to them, what the hell was that? I didn't use the word hell though.
You did. You said that to them?
Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
And then
Did they agree or were they looking at you like you were crazy?
No, she laughed and he said, I don't know, man. And then we all left. So
Interesting.
I laughed several times during the movie.
all right. Can we do spoilers then? So you could
let's-
tell me the funny parts then?
Let's move in
Okay.
officially to spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, then you should hit pause now and come back to this after you've seen Beau is Afraid. If you have seen the movie or you don't care about spoilers, then please listen on. I think we should maybe add one more little caveat before we start talking about this. And that's that Beau is Afraid is like, has some subject matter that we're probably going to discuss. We'll discuss it gently like we normally do. But I know some people listen to this in the car with their kids. Maybe this is just the one from this point on that you don't listen to that way. Let's just say that, okay? Because we'd like to talk about the themes of the movie and some things that happen. And again, we'll be gentle. Just know I told you to turn it off. All right? There's your warning. All
That's
right.
fair.
Yeah, I think this is not a kid-friendly part of the podcast. Or it's up to
Yes.
parents to decide if this is kid-friendly or not.
With that warning, it's up to you. It's on you from here on out. Okay. Do we
Any
want to
complaints, please write to James at Cinereelists.
how do we want to approach this? Do we just want to throw things out or do we want to go chronologically through the movie?
I think we should go chronologically because
Yes.
every set piece is different and we can go through it.
Sure.
That's what I think. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I would do the same thing.
Nice. Okay. Chronologically, the movie opens up. I said it in the non-spoiler because it's not really a spoiler. It happens right away. Literally, the movie opens up with Beau being birthed from his perspective. And the idea of going from like, inside his mother to outside and then immediately being dropped on his head. Did you guys
Right.
catch that?
Yes.
He's dropped on his head and then he won't cry. And so they spank him and it's like a traumatic experience, I would say. Which it probably is for most children, but maybe doesn't stick with them, I would say. Right? You're too young to remember that.
I would say
obviously.
we do not remember our births for the most part.
Right.
Hot take.
And the mother in the background, right? Do you think the mother before then was this person, or do you think the act of like him being dropped on his head and then not crying right away turned her into this person?
I would say the reaction of the mother that we hear during the birth scene is different than how the mother through the rest of the movie carries herself. So I do wonder if this was a personality changing moment for her.
Well, that's similar to a question that I had, because I wanted to know when you guys cottoned on to how sinister she actually was. Like, was it super early or was it later?
I mean, in that first phone call where he says, I can't come because my keys were taken. And then she kind of does the like, she doesn't say it, but she kind of says like, oh, do what you need to do or something, or you'll make the right decision. Like right away, I was like, oh, okay, so she's a manipulative person.
Yeah.
Nothing about this movie is subtle, guys. Like, like James, like, did you pick up on this? I'm like, yeah, of course you picked up on it. Everything is just right there in front of you.
Yeah.
I don't think everything is right there in front of you. I think the broad themes of the manipulative mother, certainly that's there. I mean, that's thrown in your face repeatedly. But I think there's other things that are pretty subtle about it, not related to that. But
okay,
we'll get into it.
For me, I wasn't fully committed to her being more sinister until on the cruise ship when she's saying like, oh, should I go to bed or do you want to go for a walk on the deck, or I'll go to bed.
Yeah.
Like that's when I was like, okay, she's going to be a villain for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know how much his mother would play a role in the movie in general. And when he got that phone call, I thought she would more be the impetus for him to like go on an adventure in a way. Not that like she would be the adventure in a weird way type of thing. And so, that was interesting to me. I definitely recognize some of the things that were said on that phone call, which definitely like kicked my drive to follow this movie through the rest of the film in high gear. I think we could move to the next section, which is kind of his apartment section and his neighborhood. He lives in this very dangerous neighborhood that you literally have to sprint from the next block over to your front door in order to, avoid being murdered by everybody else on his block. And there's just crazy psychopaths everywhere and criminals and just everything you've ever heard bad about a city is like exists right on his block for some reason.
It's like the Fox News view on big cities.
Basically.
Right? Like if you go into a big city, you're going to be eaten by a cannibal on the street while people walk over your body, and there are guns everywhere.
And
that criminals have. All I was thinking, like, oh, this is just like the right wing view of big cities on this movie.
Sure. I mean, it's the worst of any city.
I wasn't reading politics into it at all, but it was like the worst possible block you could imagine living on to the nth degree.
I'm putting politics on it. So I'm using that as perspective. I'm not. Yeah, I don't think the movie was trying to make a political statement per se.
Sure. I love that, and it took me a little while to figure out that possibly this street doesn't exist in this state, and that it's 100% his anxiety, his fears, like reinterpreting the world around him. Or that like his fears are the world. You know what I mean? Maybe there isn't a different version of this world because you're seeing the vast majority of the movie from his perspective. And his perspective is everything is going to get me, essentially. Everything is the worst version of what it could be. And I like how the movie doesn't necessarily gently move you into that because it happens pretty fast. But I do think it takes a little bit of time to like help you understand that like what you're seeing is his interpretation of the world. Did I skip a scene? When does he have the
therapist comes first?
The therapist comes before that scene. Okay. I skipped a scene then.
So actually, that's a question I have for Zach and for Josh is, do you think, is this movie a heightened world, or is what we see how he experiences the world, but maybe not what's actually happening?
Yeah,
like
Josh,
that's a hard one.
I have an opinion. I want to hear Josh's first.
Okay.
I don't know if I've landed on a decision because there's obviously a few ways you can interpret the movie, which is awesome. The more I think about it, I think it's just what he experiences. It's not really what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
I think absolutely the world is of his mind's creation, but I think that it's such a powerful perspective that he's essentially created this universe. So I do think the universe that he lives in is this heightened. I think these things are actually happening to him. I think these are really what he's experiencing, but it is a universe that his mind has created, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm in the world. I don't think it's a big delusion. And if you could like get out of his perspective, we would just see, birds chirping. I think that he does live in this world.
So
For
you're saying
example-
that what we're seeing on screen is what's happening.
Yes.
Okay.
I think, for example, like there's a cop there, right? And he's got a gun pointed at him and he's like, I'm going to shoot you if, and it's a real intense scene. I believe, really there's a cop there but it's not that intense. You know what I mean? Like it's just how he's experiencing it.
Right. Yeah, Josh, I kind of agree with you. I feel like what we're seeing is his perspective of his world, but not a actual perspective of what's happening. Like maybe where he lives is dangerous by normal big city standards, but not cannibals eating your face and naked guys stabbing you in the broad daylight dangerous.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is so good at adding things at the perfect time. So for instance, when he gets in the bathtub, right? And then he looks up and there's just a man like hovering above him, essentially. That is perfectly timed and revealed to like produce the most anxiety possible. Like he's naked in the bath and there's a guy sweating on him who's like just about to fall any second. And it's a total surprise. It's such a perfect reveal.
Yeah, and then you add the spider on the guy.
Yeah.
Which they've already introduced as like a fear. And then and the other guy is also fearful. You know what I mean? He's hiding in there because he didn't want to be around the other hooligans that were like trashing Beau's apartment. Like that's the only reason he's hiding up there. And so they're similar people in ways.
And he decided to hide there for a good 8 hours.
I mean, if he had just gently lowered himself, Beau probably wouldn't have freaked out. You know what I mean? It was like, or maybe he would have because Beau's so afraid of everything. But I think they're both fearful people. That's why that guy was up there.
When
had we seen that guy before in the movie, or was that the first time? Was he a character somewhere else?
I think we had seen him.
Okay, I couldn't tell if he was familiar or not. Like if we'd interacted with him or
was
not.
he the one asking for help when he ran for water?
Don't remember.
Oh, outside the convenience store.
Yeah,
he might have been. Yeah.
When Beau gets into the bath, like for a split,
oh yeah, I saw it. A
split second, you see his oversized downstairs, and for like 3 minutes after that, I'm like, did I see that? Did I not see that?
Yeah.
Did I see that?
It was super subtle. And you think like at first you're just like, well, the world's just strange and they just threw that in because it's strange, but it actually like comes back and is part of the plot of the movie.
I was convinced I didn't see it. I was like, I just made that up.
Yeah. Now Kyle obviously saw it because nothing in this movie is subtle.
Right. I did not see the giant downstairs when we got into the bath. I missed that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was pretty subtle.
But I mean, yes, the balls play a role in the movie later, but I don't know if his specific testicles play a plot point or just get referenced again by Nathan Lane.
No, it plays a plot point because of what he's afraid of, right?
Yeah,
because of his fear, he's shied away from certain things.
Okay,
in his life, and that's led to that problem. It's all that's the connection. I understand that you didn't make that connection because again, it was subtle and.
Hey,
well, it's kind of like the
you can't be personal about me not liking this movie.
No, I apologize.
Okay,
you probably just didn't understand it.
So like that whole through line through the movie, I think was kind of genius because it is like the perfect illustration of what a controlling mother who wants to control to this demented level would want to control, right? Is like
Yeah.
literally you cannot have an intimate relationship with another woman or else you will die type of thing. And to have that level of control over somebody, to convince them, to gaslight them to believe that like that can actually happen, to the extent that they are like in physical pain, not necessarily even just mental, but like in pain throughout the film. Yes, Kyle.
That's not how the body works. Like,
Right, but
you-
we're already
your
in a
body
world
can
that's not.
can take care of itself if certain things aren't happening. Like, it doesn't just keep on filling up. Like,
I understand, but
there's
we're
a
also
relief
in a
valve there and
world.
everything. So
We're also in a world where you probably don't have to sprint to your front door to keep from being murdered.
All heightened.
You know what I mean? Right. It's all heightened for
in his
sure.
head.
I also love in that kind of opening world just how present his mother is, even if you only realize it as the movie moves along, right? Because you've got this like MW logo all over the place.
right, yeah.
And you know it's kind of like, at first I was like, oh, it's like Walmart or like I forget what that Mike Judge movie that has like
Idiocracy?
Idiocracy has a business that like owns everything in the future. I forget the name of the business. But yeah, one of these types of movies that has a large corporation that owns everything. And I just liked the idea of like of finding out later on in the film that like she owns this MW business. I forget her name, Mona
Yeah.
Waterman.
Mona
or Water-
Wasserman.
Wasserman, yeah.
Right, Mona Wasserman. I mean, like it's everything. It's the TV dinner, it's the microwave, it's the house he lives in.
The security cameras in his apartment.
Yeah, the security camera. Like she is controlling every aspect of his life, even if he's not fully. I don't know if he's not aware of it. I couldn't tell if he's aware of it or not. Like, is he aware of the manipulation throughout the film, or is the film about him becoming aware of it?
I think he is, because some of the things he says to his therapist are about that.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, that was another. I know we skipped it, but that opening scene when the therapist writes guilty on the paper, and then that's it. I was like, I would have to know what my therapist wrote if they wrote one word the entire session. You know what I mean? It's like that would drive me absolutely insane. And then later on, there's like more meaning to that word, I feel. But in the moment, I was just like, that's brutal to just write one word when somebody's talking to you in therapy.
I think it thematically is very interesting, right? That the therapist, the one thing at the beginning of the film is he declares him guilty. And then at the end of the film, like to wrap that up, like what happens? I think it's very interesting. He was basically pronounced guilty from the start.
Right. Yeah.
He didn't have a chance.
For sure. Okay, so that opening scene with the neighborhood ends, and at the end of it, Beau runs out in the street nude and gets hit by an RV driven by Nathan Lane and Amy Ryan. And he wakes up in a teenage girl's bedroom in a house. And this couple that hit him in the RV is tending to his injuries and is taking care of him. And he learns that this family recently lost a son in a war, and that one of his war buddies is living in the backyard in an RV, or I don't know, a pull along or whatever they call them. And then there's a daughter in the picture, and kind of part two.
I just realized that every part has to do with like a parent-child relationship. I didn't get that before.
Does the first part have? I mean, I guess it has to do with his mother.
Yeah,
because he's trying to get to his mother.
Yeah,
sure.
Interesting. Okay. First of all, Nathan Lane is so funny in this role. Everything he said cracked me up.
Yeah, Amy Ryan was less funny, but the combination of them together was great. I enjoyed it. What did you think of this section of the film, Josh?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I love Amy Ryan as well.
Kyle
Yeah.
doesn't know who that is because
I know who Amy Ryan is.
Yeah.
I feel like I wonder if he was actually in the hospital and he just, this part was sort of in his head as well. I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
I've heard someone interpret it that way.
I think like broadly, all of this stuff happened for the
Yeah.
most part. It's just his weird version of it. So I don't think he, other than maybe the play, he didn't completely hallucinate what was going on.
What's with the ankle bracelet in this part though? That's what I was wondering.
I mean, I think the people were, again, they're the worst version of what this could possibly be. So maybe the ankle bracelet was like some kind of monitor, like vitals monitor, but in his mind, it's like some kind of
Like a-
control aspect or something.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
used as a tracker.
Mhm.
So
right.
I don't know. I found that Jeeves character so problematic of like, here's the veteran with PTSD and he's crazy.
Mhm.
Like I was just really bothered by that character and that portrayal of PTSD. I don't, and I can't buy the argument of like, oh, it's all heightened, it's all in his head, because it's still being presented to us as an audience member. So like, I feel like saying, oh, it's not really what's happening, it's all heightened. That's kind of a cop out. And
Yeah.
I thought that character bothered me specifically because he was also kind of played it for comedic effects of like, oh, look at the crazy veteran, and look how funny it is that he has to, trash things, how we have to deal with him. Like I did not find that funny whatsoever. And then he comes back later in the movie in the theater scene, and then a third time, and it's like, come on, like I thought we moved on from this guy. So the whole Jeeves thing just bothered me from the start.
I will say this is my least favorite section in the film.
This was my I don't even know. Not my favorite, but not my least favorite. In this section, everyone was either at a 1 or a 10. I feel like Joaquin Phoenix, for me, for most of this movie, he's just staring at things. Like it's a subtle performance from him in the sense of he's not going big. But there are times I was like, could you say something and please just stop staring at people? Like people are talking to him, asking him questions, and he's just kind of like,
he's frozen.
He's frozen. And I just find that frustrating to deal with people in real life who are just like, you try and talk to them and they freeze, and then just to see like a movie character who like will not do anything and is just frozen. I was like, this is frustrating for me as a viewer. And then everyone else around him is at a 10. Like they're just doing everything. Like the teenage daughter with the paint. It's like, come on,
man.
And then Amy Ryan's reaction to the teenage daughter with the paint, and like Nathan Lane's all like, "All right, Bucko, let's go do this." And it was just, it was too much for me to have everything cranked up that much the whole time. Yeah.
I'll say a couple things. One, the soldier that lived in the RV in the backyard, that also bothered me. I think in a similar way to bother Kyle. I thought it was a little bit problematic that they have this person so obviously suffering PTSD be like for comedic effect or like scary effect, I guess. Apart from that though, I really appreciated the section because I thought it was the one that gave us a glimpse into who he is, Joaquin Phoenix's character, in the sense that like he's a good guy, right? Like he kept offering to the daughter to like switch beds, and that was a very normal response, like a very like empathetic response from him, right? And everything that his life has like forced on him has like pushed down his personality, but you can tell at his core he's a good person that like struggles to be normal in society or to engage with society normally. But that made me feel sympathetic towards him. Whereas the first one, he's just like, well, his life's terrible, but like, I don't know if I care. Now I realize like I do care about this guy because I think he has good values, of like empathy for the daughter, whatever. The paint was so visceral,
Mm.
like in a way that I was not expecting. When she started guzzling the paint, I had a physical reaction to that.
Wow.
I couldn't believe how well it was able to translate from screen to like imagining what that was like. It was very extreme.
And that was a very Ari Aster horror moment with like her eyes being all bloodshot, and like you've definitely seen that effect before. So that was some of his horror bona fides coming through, even though it wasn't a horrific. It was horrific. It wasn't a horror moment.
Yeah. And then another thing this scene gave me was more of what the first scene gave me that we didn't talk about. When the notes were put under his door, you know, like turn down your music, and he's like not playing any music.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And like it slides all the way across his apartment and stops at his bed. And then when we get Amy Ryan bringing him coffee, and then he lifts up the mug, and underneath is a note that says "Stop incriminating yourself." And it's just there's no explanation, and it's such a haunting note to get from a stranger. Like if I got that note, I would freak out because I would not know how to interpret it. And I loved the enigma of that note. Can someone explain it to me? Like, was there a meaning behind it for Amy Ryan or what?
I mean, I have an explanation. I don't know if it's accepted as truth or anything like that, but there's definitely a moment at the end where, you know, a judgment is happening, and they're running through the fact that like everything that's happened to him has been set up by his mother. And so there's even a flashback to the moment when Nathan Lane's character asks him, you know, would you like me to not help all these sick people and I'll take you right now? Or can you wait till tomorrow? Like everything was a test, basically. And so I think the implication is that note is Amy Ryan letting him know that he's being watched and that he needs to stop bad mouthing his mother, basically. And I don't know if the movie is one for one, because we'll get into what the ending is and what it isn't in everybody's theory. But I think in that moment, it's either Beau reminding himself that he needs to not do that, or if you accept that these things are really happening, it is Amy Ryan, who was hired by his mother, letting him subtly know that he's being watched. So I don't know. That's just the way I saw it.
Is that what you think is going on? That Amy, I obviously the mom's controlling large parts of this to some extent. Do you think like she even like hired Amy Ryan?
I think they're a legitimate family, and their son did die, and the daughter is who she is. The veteran Outback is who he is, but that the mother had communication with the family and somehow knew what Beau was up to, essentially.
Like the mother said
she worked for the company.
Yeah.
Go hit him with your car and bring him to your house.
No, maybe he got hit by the car, and then she knew about that, and she got a hold of them and said, I want to know what he's saying about me. Could be. I don't know. Or that could have not happened, and it's all a paranoid delusion, even the note.
I think that's
a paranoid delusion.
One thing that frustrates me about this movie is that there's no even hint of like what's reality and what isn't.
Yeah.
And I guess for me personally, just living in this completely heightened, is this real? Is this not? Is this a delusion? Is this not? And not even like a grasp of what is possible reality, I found very frustrating.
We'll get into this more, but I think we could stake a claim right now. I do think some of these things are delusions, but broadly, these things are happening to him. He's meeting all these people, and he's headed to his mother's house, who did die. Period. Broadly, Josh, what do you think what actually happens in this movie, and what's just other things?
It's hard to say, but I think I mostly agree with what you just said just then. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Kyle?
I treated this movie 100% as just like everything that's happening is happening.
Yeah.
And I think that fully engages with the ride.
Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know. I don't know if what I was seeing was actually happening or it's just some heightened paranoid delusion he's having. And again, I found it frustrated.
Sure. I understand what you guys were saying about the veteran, and I didn't consider that in the moment for sure. I hadn't even really thought about that, but I did think that family was put there to be kind of a surrogate for like living in the U.S. I would say. Josh, you can chime in on what it's like to live in the U.S. for us, but I mean, it's a family that saw their son as a hero, right? But there are things that are said about what the son did that are not heroic things in the act of war. They also explicitly say that that veteran killed his troop, killed their son, essentially.
Right.
And so, and he's obviously being kept in this psychotic state by the parents on some level. Like whether he has PTSD or not, the people around him, in Beau's perspective anyway, are keeping him in this state and leveraging him for their own grief. You know what I mean? They're kind of using him as a replacement, even though that person will never be their son, essentially. And they're completely ignoring their daughter and pretending like, even though something tragic happened, everything's fine. Like Nathan Lane is ridiculously happy in this movie. And even when discussing the son, it has to be happy. It can't be that it's actually a tragic thing. And I think the fact that they're like constantly popping pills to be happy. The daughter is like just constantly shoveling pills in their mouth. The parents know about it, don't care at all, and encourage it. And like the only person that's acting normally in this family is the daughter, in my opinion. There's some heightened things, the stuff with the paint, maybe the car ride wouldn't actually happen, but like what she's doing is a natural reaction. You know what I mean? Like the acting out, the being freaked out about this, the realizing that everybody's acting like this isn't a tragedy. Kind of the sainthoodness of the son. Like these are all like not healthy reactions to what actually happened to this family. And the daughter, oddly enough, has the most realistic reaction. I hesitate to say the most healthy because of how she ends up, but at least she acknowledges that like this needs to be dealt with. It can't just be pilled away because she's tried that. And it can't be with replacement people like the guy out back who's not working out, or Beau, that her family needs to deal with this. So anyway, I think that's what was going through my mind during those veteran scenes. Not necessarily that it was like a negative depiction of a guy with PTSD. It was a guy with PTSD being used and being kept in a state of PTSD. So I'm not defending the movie because they probably could have communicated in a different way that would be more easy to interpret. But anyway, does that make any sense to anybody?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the family segment kind of comes to a conclusion with the daughter drinking the paint and Amy Ryan blaming that on Beau, even though it's clearly has nothing to do with him.
Right.
Other than him being in the room. Right. And he runs off into the woods and meets a young lady.
No. First he passes out and
Okay.
wakes up, because every transition in this movie is he passes out and wakes up.
That's true. I didn't think about that either. Interesting.
Yeah. I was like, oh, he's passed out again. Where's he going to wake up this time?
When does the cruise ship happen? Is that before? That's before, isn't it?
Was that a memory or what?
The flashback.
The flashback to him on a cruise as a young boy.
When does he have that flashback? That's a good question.
I feel like it has shades throughout, and then there is one big section. I think it might have been between that. Like, I think he runs into the woods and hits his head, and then the flashback happens in between that.
That's what
and
I
the
was maybe
woods.
thinking.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
So it's him as a young boy on a cruise ship with his mom.
Right.
And they share a room, share a bed, and she's being weird. And then there's one other girl his age on the ship.
Right.
And he gets a crush on her.
It's the only other kid on the ship. So you don't know if it's like a cruise for rich people or if it's like an adult cruise that for whatever reason, it's not some like normal family cruise.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the girl is shot in a way several times in the movie where it's like they're kind of interchangeable, the mom and the girl. Like at one point he has a flashback to the bathtub scene, and he sees the girl next to him, and then as the camera pans away from her, and then the mom walks from where the girl was. So like basically the girl turns into the mom just off camera.
Yeah, in a weird way, he kind of like sees, or I don't know if he sees them kind of as similar people, or if he just can't differentiate his love for his mom with his love for a different, female, basically. I don't know. There was definitely some, what do they call it? Oedipus
Oedipal,
complex
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Going on there.
And there's that dead guy in the pool too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, with the flashback kind of to the photo at the beginning, you find out that he's, longed for this girl that he knew when he was young. And there's this photo of her, looking lovely next to a pool. And then later on, you find out that in the background, there's a dead
body.
guy. And she's a little bit of a weirdo on top of that, or at least his interpretation.
He's like his manic pixie dream girl, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So then and throughout that sequence, you also get shades of like the mother and her manipulation when he was younger, and just kind of shaping his worldview, and kind of reiterating the idea that like the only person that will ever care about him or care for him is her, and that like she'll keep him safe and stuff like that. And really kind of drawing the line kind of gently that he has to choose on some level between other women and her. And I liked that section. I mean, it's the most normal section. I'm sure Kyle loved it.
This movie turned me off
You were so out.
quickly that it was really hard for me to enjoy anything in this movie. Like I was definitely watching it. I was present for it. I guess maybe I don't have strong feelings about if I could give this section credit, it does flesh out his relationship with his mother.
Mhm.
Right. And like, obviously she becomes much more of a central character. So I'm going to say, when most of the mother stuff in this, I think there is a good movie within this about a controlling mom.
Mhm.
I just think the presentation was, for me, awful.
Sure.
So like the theme, the story of it, I don't have a problem with any of that per se. And honestly, the movie almost got me back on track when he got that phone call from Bill Hader, which was like, I knew that voice. And then you kind of see his face later from the UPS guy, right?
Yeah.
So he has this phone call, and it's about, oh, your mother and she's dead. And it's like being told him by a UPS guy who happened to happen in. And, there's this whole thing of like, can you describe her? And he describes like her hair and her face. And he's like, what about the rest of her body? And like, you slowly realize that something tragic happened. And like, that was getting me a little bit back into the movie. I'm like, oh, this is a story about a guy who had a fractured relationship with his mom, and now something terrible has happened, and he has to go travel to see her and deal with it and whatever. Like, okay, cool. And then we end up in Amy Ryan's house for like an hour with everyone just yelling the whole time. I was like, oh, never mind. This is not what I wanted at all. So
that Bill Hader like phone call, I thought couldn't have been voice acted better. I can't imagine a version of that call that was done better.
Oh yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Kyle, would you have liked this movie better if, especially that first section, instead of being turned up to 11, if it was like at like an 8?
Yeah, maybe if he had just like taken like this, they skimmed everything up, like took the peaks off of everything, and like, okay, let's just tone this down a little bit. I think for me it was just a little too amped up.
I gotcha.
And again, like Mother's a movie that's amped up, doesn't bother me. Right, I should really like that
way though.
Uncut
Mother works its way into it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Uncut Gems
when it goes, it really goes.
Yes, but it doesn't hit you right away. I would
Right.
say Uncut Gems is the movie that I can closely compare this to, just in like anxiety and tone wise.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And maybe it was the story of Uncut Gems or it's the Adam Sandler performance, but that gives you something to latch onto, which is a rather uncomfortable movie. For me, there just wasn't a lot for me to enjoy about it besides just being uncomfortable the whole time.
I'm just really glad you don't have normal anxiety, Kyle, because you would not enjoy it. Because I think that's what this was from frame one, was just a representation of somebody with extreme anxiety. And I don't know if Ari Aster has that or has it in his family, or I don't even know if this is how it actually manifests in people's brains, but it gave me the feeling of what it might feel like to just be anxious about everything around you.
Yeah, I heard someone say, I don't know if I agree with this or not, but that you need to be able to project yourself onto the movie, and if you
Mhm.
can't project yourself into the story, you might not enjoy it. I don't know how you interpret that, but
Yeah.
I guess
Sure.
it's true with most movies, though, isn't it?
I mean, just since this is a therapy session that James already opened up, and Zach, you probably can attest to this. I was a pretty anxious kid, like as an elementary school kid.
Mhm.
So maybe, and that's something that I've worked very hard to not be anymore, like not just be that worked up over everything. So maybe when I see someone who gets very worked up over things, it reminds me of, who I was as a younger child.
Sure.
Just to, let's share some feelings right now.
I mean, and that would make sense as to why you wouldn't enjoy being in that world for 3 hours
Right.
straight.
Yeah.
From frame one. I totally get that.
Like, Zach, would you agree? Was I
100%.
a bit anxious maybe as a child?
Well, I would certainly say you felt anxious. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you didn't come across as anxious, but I know that you felt more anxiety than you let on.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. You did a great job of not letting most people in on that.
That's good. I'm really good at code switching like that.
Yeah,
But,
and to
I was
me-
aware of it.
Yeah.
To me, not to be insensitive as somebody who doesn't, I mean, I get anxious, certainly,
Right.
but like, it's not like a normal
And I still get anxious
part of my
about
life.
things. It's not like I'm just
It
like,
was a fun ride for 3 hours. I would not want to live in that world, obviously, but it was super fun to be in it in such a protected way for 3 hours.
For me, it was a world where literally anything could happen.
Right.
So
yeah.
it just
Exactly.
it was an open world.
Other people's nightmare, fun for me.
Anxiety tourism.
anxiety
I
tourism.
guess.
Let me tell you guys, it's not all that great.
Okay, so he's now he reaches his forest utopia, right?
Mhm.
It's a theater troupe of just a commune of anarchist theater people, artistics that are
Mhm.
in the forest putting on a play. And I think this is his like little utopia safe space, right?
Mhm.
I think he loves it there.
I just want to say before we get into this section, after James saw this movie, he sent us like 10 list ideas. And he basically spoiled like every scene in this movie through his list ideas. Like not specifically what happens, but he was like top 10 movies with a theater scene, top 10 movies with a sex scene, top 10 movies about mother issues. So I was like, okay, James, like slow down a little bit. I haven't seen the movie yet.
I mean, they're sure in retrospect they're spoiler, but they weren't gonna like tell you what the movie was about.
Yeah, but like I was waiting for things to happen because I knew that based on your list, something was going to happen soon. So
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I kind of, I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure towards the end of the movie when they get to the judgment scene, they start listing off the places where the mother has been watching him. And I feel like this is the one they don't mention.
no, the mother mentions the pregnant slut or something like that. Yeah,
Okay.
so
and
there
that was
is-
the girl that he met in
Yeah,
the
sure.
woods. All right.
Yeah, she uses very very strong derogatory language to describe this pregnant woman in this theater troupe
Sure.
that finds Beau in the woods.
Right.
I think this is my favorite section in the film, like the favorite part. And I think it's
It's
just,
so
All right.
cool.
I think it's what Beau not necessarily wishes his life was like, but maybe thought what his life could have been, maybe, if he wasn't
Mhm.
abused.
Yeah, this was him like hope projecting,
Right.
Trying to make his life have purpose, right? By giving it this epic story.
Mhm.
I really liked
And-
the. Go ahead, Zach.
Oh, and I love the narrator because the narrator
Yes.
is so amoral in the sense of like nothing that happens is good or bad. It just happens.
Yeah.
You know, like this is the next thing that happens, and then this is the next thing, and like good comes and then bad comes. And it's just this like objective, amoral voice dictating his life. And yeah. And I think for Beau, having that kind of straightforward, no emotion attached to like events was really important to him.
I really liked how the narrator said everything in the second person. Like,
Mhm.
you will have a family and you will do this. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I mean, I would say this is probably the part of the movie I enjoyed the most. Maybe because things were just like they slowed down a little bit.
It's like you catch your breath.
Right, exactly. I mean, visually it was really cool. It reminded me of Michel Gondry at times.
Absolutely.
Was this part animated? I couldn't tell if this was. I guess it wasn't. It was animated to some
partially
yeah,
animated,
okay.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I also think it's interesting that in this moment in the movie, it's the first time that I feel like people around him were being genuinely nice to him, and he gets a moment to breathe, and then that gives him an opportunity to actually daydream about what life might be. Like, it's interesting that whole play section where it goes into the animated has almost no mention of his mother in it. It's like the first kind of moment in the film where he doesn't feel like she's in control of something. Now, eventually it all goes bad for him because, you know, she's done so much damage to his brain, I would say, that it all comes around. But the first half of that kind of stage play vision is, I think, only accomplished because he's surrounded by people who are caring for each other in like a fairly healthy way. I mean, they're in the middle of the woods, and
I think this whole part represented his father side, right? Because the story that he goes on is about him being a father to 3 boys. It's all happiness there. That's where he meets his father. You know, so like the forest is like this happy, good version where like he had a relationship with his father, and like this is what his life would be like if he was a father, you know? Whereas like the other stories are dealing with different relationship structures, you know, like the one before that was like the family, you know, like the nuclear family and like that kind of, you know, and other ones are him and his mom and him and his like a potential suitor, you know, like potential mate, you know, like, but this one is the father. That's how I took it.
Is that his father that he meets at the play?
He certainly thinks
he thinks it is. We never know because he gets blown up in like 5 minutes later. Then G shows back up again just to, you think you're enjoying a movie, and then the crazy veteran shows up again, throwing knives.
Josh, you think it was his dad?
I couldn't say yes or no. I mean, I know that's a easy response, but it's funny in that section. So he got taken away by like a flood, is that right? Or something like that. And like there is a theme of water, even from the very beginning, that goes all the way from the start to the finish. And I mean, I have no idea what that's about, but it's just an interesting observation. No,
I mean, you hear the splash during the birth scene.
Yeah.
You at the pill scene at the beginning when he has to run across the street to get water to swallow the pill or to keep from dying after taking the pill. Then you've got this scene. You got a cruise ship on the water, and then at the end you've got the ship in the boat.
And you got the bath scene.
Right, the bath scene. There's lots of water in this.
You also have the bath flooding when he gets the phone call about his mom.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. I took that as, you know, he just feels like he's drowning and underwater and struggling all the time.
Yep.
Interesting.
I took it as Ari Aster likes water.
This is like Signs.
Could be all of those things for sure.
Have you guys seen the short film this is based on?
No.
It's good. Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time since I watched it, but
I bet you if I had watched this as like a 20-minute short, I maybe would have loved it.
Yep.
But because it was like 3 hours of brutal being hit over the head, that's where.
That's what we want. We want to be hit over the head with cinema.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, we really haven't talked about this movie in the context of Ari Aster. Maybe we'll leave that for the very
Right,
end.
I
But
think
I do think this is interesting in the context of like a fairly young filmmaker who has only made 3 movies. That all 4 of us have seen all 3. So
Yep.
Okay, what happens next after this scene? Yeah, it kind of gets blown up. The veteran's back, and he kind of runs away, right? And runs all the way to his mother's house. Isn't that the next scene? He like shows up at his mother's house, and the funeral's over. Everybody's leaving.
He gets a
Can't
ride
remember
there
how he
somehow.
gets there.
Oh no, he hitchhikes.
Okay.
This is the one time he doesn't pass out to get somewhere. He actually takes agency and gets there by himself.
All right. Fair enough. Do we meet the people he hitchhiked with, or do they?
It was just a
not even
man.
Just
do
a
that?
guy in a van or something. Yeah.
All right. I can remember that. So that makes sense. Yeah. So he's now at his mother's house. He walks in, and there's a headless body because he was told earlier on that a chandelier fell on his mother's head and just squashed it. And so he starts looking around the house, and you see a lot of history about his mother's business and how it's grown over the years, how he was used in the marketing of the business when he was younger, and just the kind of the theme of the business. Like some of the posters on the wall or pictures on the wall said things like protecting you for 40 years. And we learned that he's 40 years old, stuff like that. Just reiterating that his mother's like been quote unquote protecting him, or has been in charge of him his entire life. He's never been allowed to move on and be a fully fledged adult person. And then his old girlfriend from the cruise ship shows up, right? He finds out about the mother after that, right?
Yeah.
After
Yes.
the girl.
Yes, after Parker Posey scene.
After Parker Posey shows up. I really loved Parker Posey in this
Yeah,
movie.
I agree.
I thought she was really good. She really put it out there. For sure. And I haven't seen her in a movie in quite a while that wasn't Superman. That Superman movie.
Superman Returns, or not Returns. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it was
like
Returns.
the 2006 one with Brandon Roth.
Yeah. The one and done one.
Yeah.
With old what's his name in it too.
Kevin Spacey.
Right. I like her in that as well. But I love that her mother hired his love from the cruise ship. Like she has to control everything.
Yeah.
Basically. What did you guys think of the scene with the girlfriend? What does it have to do with the movie?
Well, I mean, so he's been told by his mom that his dad died during sex. That can basically the act that conceived him, like on their wedding night or something like that. And that in fact and his father and his father and
His
like
father's
for
father.
generations,
Yeah.
this has killed all the males in your family. So don't have sex is pretty much like the moral of the story. Or if you have sex, you will die. Right. So then Parker Posey decides that she's gonna. I don't even know why she wanted to have sex with him.
I don't.
Just
They don't.
why not?
go that far.
I think she fondly remembered that time of the cruise as well, I guess.
Well, she
She
originally
has-
was saying like, "Wait for me, wait for me, wait
Yeah.
for me."
Okay.
So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of.
And then
how it
doesn't he
linked.
tell her, "I waited for you," and that kind of
Yeah.
did it? Yeah.
It's a weird kink to have, but okay. Not gonna kink shame here.
I thought it was interesting that beyond some of the absurdities of that scene in particular, somebody did die. You know what I mean? It wasn't like he finds out that his mother was lying or that she
Well,
had
she
a
was
false
lying.
fear.
Right.
You
He
think
didn't.
she was
Well,
lying?
he didn't die.
She was lying. He didn't die.
Yeah.
And his father probably didn't die. I mean, I think that she was lying because he didn't die.
Yeah,
Sure.
I am 100% positive that that whole story was a fabrication to control him so he doesn't have relationships with other women. He doesn't have a life outside of her. It's all about
He doesn't replace her with another woman.
Exactly.
Well, dude,
Mhm.
it's a real thing in real life, a real category of abuse where parents put false symptoms on their kids, or lie to them about diseases they
Yeah,
might have.
Munchausen.
Munchausen
by
by
proxy.
proxy.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Yeah,
by
that's the
proxy.
one. So that is
Hmm.
kind of based in reality.
But why did the girl die? I don't understand that necessarily.
Because everything that bad that can happen happens in this life.
Right.
Is that the only reason? Just that kind of surface reading?
I don't know. That's how my snap interpretation of it was just like, it can't possibly just happen and be okay. Like everything bad happens.
I was shocked when that happened, and the lady
Oh.
behind me was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like just had a verbal outburst.
Sure.
I will say the only time I laughed during this movie, and by laugh I meant was when they were carrying out her rigor mortis body. It had to like
Right.
turn her through the door. I thought that that got me like, okay, that's good. That's funny.
Sure. I mean, that was pretty dark.
Yeah, but it was funny. Like
It had
it
you
was
hooked by 2.5 hours in.
No, it had, because then we immediately get such an unnecessary twist.
Which is that the mother wasn't actually dead.
Right.
She shows
She
up back
faked her entire death just
Mhm.
to punish her son. I was like, okay, never mind. I'm out again.
Tapping out.
I didn't really see it as a twist, and neither did he. He knew it didn't happen either.
But I think as an audience, there was never any. I mean, to us, we were presented like at no point does Joaquin Phoenix throughout the movie say like, "Oh, I don't believe her. She's controlling me. I need to go find out." Like, it's not. He doesn't communicate that to the audience through Circa or whatever. There is nothing along the way that would clue us into or give us the fact that she's not dead. Like, it's just presented as she died in this tragic way, and they leave it at that. And then she revealed, "Oh, I'm not dead." So, right, whether you believe it or not is fine. But I don't think that anything about the movie could give you a clue or to kind of push you in one direction or the other. It was just was presented as it happened.
I mean, I think this can be thought of in multiple ways. I think it's possible that she did die. And I also think it's possible that she didn't. And that like this is again just like a visual representation of just how lasting this kind of abuse would be on somebody. Like, she literally can't die, even if she did. It's never going to leave him.
And
Like the back of his brain type of thing, because she also dies again and then comes back.
he manifested the birthmark on the body then also. That's part of.
I don't know. I'm just saying,
like,
she dies multiple times in this movie.
That's my problem with this
Some
movie. If this
on
whole movie is just
screen,
one giant
then she comes
delusion,
back.
then like, what's the point? What are we doing here? If like it's all just like he might as well just wake up at the end and be like, "Oh, it was all a dream," and then cut to credits.
But the movie doesn't do that because I think it's a visual representation of somebody with extreme anxiety, or at least somebody else's interpretation of what that might be like.
Right.
And like constantly assuming, or maybe like, I imagine if you had this in an extreme way, you could let your mind go and be like, what if my, just keeping it in the world of the movie, what if my mom died? Like, what if she's already dead and nobody's called me? And then you find out they're not dead. You're like, okay, they're not dead. And then like later on that day, you're like, but maybe they died between now and the call. You know what I mean? Like your brain just like keeps
Sure.
going type of thing. And so I don't think that necessarily was in the movie, but I do think, and I think this could go either way, that she probably died from the chandelier because other people talk to him about that. Everything else that happens after he sees the body, like, he's only party
Well,
to it.
everyone thought that she was dead. Like, she faked it for everybody.
Mhm.
But so how I see it is She was the thing that kept him from enjoying his life, having a normal life, being a normal person, right? And with her death came the possibility for happiness. And immediately she died, and he had a possibility to like have the girl that got away, right? That he's always been pining after. And to finally sleep with a woman. Like he got his chance of happiness. And her not actually being dead was the rug pull that nightmare scenario that he finally let himself not worry about, right? He gave himself a moment without anxiety, and it was punishment for not remaining anxious, because the thing that he never let his anxiety get to the level of thinking, oh, maybe she's still alive, happened. And she was still alive. And it's like the worst of all possible worlds. His therapist was secretly in on it, you know?
Mhm.
It just basically was the like punishment, his internal punishment for allowing himself to be happy.
Yeah. That's how I was seeing it too.
Anyways, we get what'd you think, Josh?
I was just going to say, going back to how you were trying to translate it through someone having anxiety and what that would look like. I'd love my wife to watch it, because she's always suffered panic attacks and full anxiety most of her life. And I don't know if she would ever watch it, and she's fine with me talking about this, by the way. But it would be super interesting if she watched it, just to see what she would say.
Does she like other like anxiety inducing movies, like horror movies or?
She loved Uncut Gems.
Okay.
Really loved it, but she was like exhausted from it, as you are. But she doesn't like horror at all. She likes pretty girly films, and you know,
Sure.
Princess Bride and those sort of things.
Nice.
Yeah. I will say the performance that I alluded to as being like the greatest performance is Patti LuPone. I thought she was perfect. I thought
As
she was
Mona Wasserman.
so good.
Mhm.
Everything she
was
said was
good.
so cutting. It was amazing.
Yeah. I liked it too. She was like the perfect manipulative mother who was like just absolutely brutal about it. And pretty much like the only person that doesn't fully understand what's going on here is Beau. You know what I mean? Like they make it crystal clear to the audience in those final moments what she's doing.
Right.
And why she's doing it. And Beau just does not understand it at all.
Did she kill the girl?
Martha?
Was there anything? Yeah. Was there anything that could lead to us thinking that?
I mean,
I don't remember.
I got the impression
seeing
that she
anything.
paid, like she essentially said, "Hey, Martha, if I can use if you will die, I can pay your family millions of dollars." Like it was kind of an indecent proposal kind of thing.
Oh, no, I got that as well. I was meaning the girl that he slept with.
Oh, Parker Posey.
Mhm.
I didn't see
anything
anything that would cause that. I think it's just
Were you
one of
watching
those.
closely? Were you watching closely enough?
Oh, you know, I did miss the blowgun that she had in her hands at the right
That'd be
moment. My
that'd be
bad.
hilarious.
Sorry about
Okay. So the mother shows back up. They have a discussion. And then I don't remember when does the attic scene come before the choking scene?
Yes.
Okay. So at some point he goes up into the attic. You've had these flashbacks where a child is being sent up to the attic by his mother, and he's watching it from a bathtub. And you don't really know what these things mean, but later on in the movie, she says that your father's up in the attic, right? And so he goes up into the attic to finally find out what's up there. And when he gets up there, he sees an emaciated version of himself and a giant monster penis, basically. And I'm not sure I fully understand what was going on in this moment, but I will say I was shocked by it.
You weren't expecting that?
I was not. Like the emaciated Joaquin, I could I could fathom, but the other part I was just not ready for, because even though there is like some fantastical weirdness going on in the movie throughout, certainly a heightened reality, strange perception of the world, there just wasn't that level of like bonkersness happening, at least in my brain. And it took me a little bit to really think about what was going on there to I think come to a conclusion. I don't know. What was, to me, that's the most shocking part of the movie, probably designed to be that way. What did you guys think of that moment? A little too much or just right?
Yeah, I was disappointed by that moment.
You were disappointed
I was disappointed by that choice.
because you thought it was at 11 and you didn't realize there was like a 13 or a 14 here.
Like,
okay.
so he has this flashback a couple times throughout the movie, and pretty early I was like, well, that's his twin who's been sent up to the attic. Like, I don't know. For me, it was not when he got up there and saw emaciated him. I was like, well, of course that's him. Like, I was not surprised, or I didn't think it was a dream. I was pretty sure right away it was an actual memory he was having, and it was the mom sending away the one that asked questions. So,
to be honest, I didn't interpret it as his twin brother. I interpreted it as the brave version of himself.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I guess I took it literally, as then there actually was another boy who was asking questions, who is now living up in that attic. But at this point, I don't know what is real in this movie and what's heightened. So I was like, well, it might as well just be a boy living up there with a giant penis. Why not?
Sure.
What
do you think, Josh? Was it?
Yeah, I never once thought of it as, that thought never entered my mind as him having a twin. I think he was so traumatized by what had been going on, he just sort of separated himself from it. So pictured another person. Yeah, he pictured a brave version of himself actually standing up to his mom, and that's the version that got thrown in the attic. And the lesson it taught him is that don't go against your mom ever.
Yeah, and that version of himself was asking questions about his dad.
Yes.
She gets mad at him about it and banishes him to and so the emaciated version of him was because that curiosity was no longer fed. He sent it up to the attic and shut it down.
Now, the other half of it, I have no explanation or thoughts about. I'm really curious what you guys have to say about the meaning of that.
And why did Jeeves have to rush in and...
Yeah, why was Jeeves back for that?
Yeah.
Just
he killed his dad twice.
Yeah.
I mean, my interpretation of it was that even though he was curious about who his father was, he literally knows nothing about it. Like his mom won't talk about his dad, won't give him any context about his dad other than he's the guy that died during your conception. And so in the back darkest recess of his mind, this is all he has to go off of. His dad's just like this monster who's not there for him, who represents conception. You know what I mean? And like the male organ that makes that happen.
Right. But why does it have claws?
Because it's a nightmarish version. He knows nothing of a father other than the worst part of what could possibly happen in that process.
Then why is Jeeves back? If this is all a figment of his imagination,
PTSD.
See, you don't even know. Like that's.
I mean, I don't know.
Things just happen in this.
I didn't write the movie. This is just my guess.
I don't think Ari Aster wrote the movie either. I think he just had a bunch of ideas and filmed as much as he could.
I think somebody was very intentional
Jeeves.
when they
that
wrote
was
this movie.
the version of Jeeves that was brave. No, I'm just kidding.
Zach, come on, Zach. All the brave boys go up to the attic.
Yeah. No, I have no idea what was going on there. Josh, any insight for us?
Well, I think it's just his sexuality's been locked up. You know, I think that's basically it.
Too.
That is a great explanation.
Absolutely, that's better than my explanation. For sure. I unashamedly love that scene.
Oh, I was so surprised, like so shocked and surprised. I think I had just had a big smile on my face.
The whole back half of the movie, Like everything that happens from the moment he arrives at his mother's house through to the credits. I loved every minute.
Was
of
pretty
it.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it totally, and it might just be because I bought into the first half for sure, but just everything happened exactly where I feel it should have happened. I could have never written it myself, definitely, but it all made sense in sequence to me. Even if I'm missing broader themes, just the escalation of wackiness and how each thing builds on one another, culminating in that attic scene. And then you get like a little bit of an epilogue, which to me was more like, why did we just go through this more than anything? But yeah, it just it totally worked for me.
The attic scene was the third time I wanted to walk out of the theater.
Oh.
Like, but I'm going to be completely honest. From the attic to the end, I was 100% checked out of this movie. Like, I could have been doing anything else at that time. So I may not have a lot of insight of what happened in that final 20 minutes because I don't give an F at that point.
Sure.
Okay, so he strangles his mom, kills her.
But does he?
Who knows?
Because he kind of like, he's like choking her.
Yeah, I don't think it was long enough to kill her.
Oh no, I just figured the falling into the glass table killed her.
Okay.
Right, but like he's backing up, she's backing up, and then he realizes what he's doing and he removes his hands.
Oh, totally.
And then she just like passes out and falls into the table. Or
I just
did she?
I assumed he didn't strangle her for long enough to kill her, so she would have survived by the time he let go, and then she fell into the glass table, and that would have killed her. But you think she just passed out into the table and would have survived it?
No, what I honestly believe is she died from a chandelier.
Gotcha.
And in that moment when he's talking to her and conversing, and then all the way up to the choking scene, through the attic scene, all that kind of stuff was like when he put his hands around her neck and was choking her, none of that was actually happening. But even if he didn't fully do it, he thought about it. And in his mind, that makes him guilty. Because his mother, just the fact that he thought about it was enough for her to just fall over dead.
I gotcha.
He didn't even have to choke her.
I guess the reason I thought that she actually did die in that sense is that when he goes into the afterlife, right, in the boat, in the river Styx or whatever, I don't know what he's doing. She's there in the afterlife. So I was thinking like she's dead along with him, like part of the judgment. What do you think, Josh?
I don't know. I think what James said is pretty accurate. Hey.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's definitely a theory out there that the mother was right and he has his moment in bed with Parker Posey and he died.
Yeah.
And everything after that is not happening.
Is there anything that lets us think that? Because I don't see it.
Yeah, I agree with Zach on that one.
I mean, it lines up with the idea that the mother is actually dead. And do you believe he actually got in a boat and then it capsized? And like there's a real world version of that actually happening, and yet he's like diluting it.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like
I think he got in a boat and died.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when he's in the arena, when Commodus goes back to the arena, I loved that. That a movie ends and he's in the Coliseum. It was fantastic.
Sure.
I think that he was dead at that point.
Okay. And she was, because she was there as well.
Yeah.
How did he die, Zach?
Maybe suicide, or maybe his boat malfunctioned in the water as he was trying to escape or something. And he drowned.
Okay.
That theory of him dying on the bed or whatever when he had sex is that. Have you seen that film Stay with Ryan Gosling? I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I don't think so.
I wouldn't want to spoil it because it is really good, but it kind of delves into a similar thing.
My problem with that theory is it means the mom was right. So like that just really muddles the message.
Yeah.
Like, so the mom was trying to protect him the whole time. She's not the villain, you know?
Yeah.
There's also no change in tone of the movie from before that act to after that act. So it's hard to tell, like, oh, from this point forward, this is all not a dream, but this is all happening in the afterlife or in a heightened reality or whatever, because the whole movie up to this point is a figment or heightened or something. So it's hard to draw a line between this is what's actually happening versus this is now what's happening in a I don't know, a spiritual sense.
I don't disagree. I think that's absolutely intentional to just kind of muddy the
Right.
water enough that you can't get a full handle on what's going on here and what's real and what's not, type of thing. I think it's all very intentional. What did you guys think of the idea that he was being judged, right? And that his mechanisms to defend himself were impotent at best.
That was so
I would
cool.
say.
That he had like
Yeah.
this, like, you know, cheap lawyer who didn't even have a megaphone versus like this very what's that actor's name? It was so perfect casting. I loved it.
Richard Kind.
So
Yeah.
great.
I did not like the 1-800-lawyer sign above it. It again, for me, it was just like, let's hit you over the head, just in case you couldn't figure out that there's this small meek lawyer who can't communicate. We're also going to put like a cheesy sign above him to show you how cheap this thing is. I thought that was a poor choice.
That's fair criticism.
Yeah.
I would say.
I'm pretty sure that sign was in the opening, and it's also a Mona Wasserman sign.
Oh, I mean, like when he's walking through the house, he sees a picture of his neighborhood, which then makes you wonder, okay, does he actually live in this neighborhood, or is this part of his figment also of like he imagines he's living in this neighborhood that his mom created or whatever?
I also thought, and maybe I'm reading into this, the moment when his lawyer gets thrown off and falls face first into a rock, was that a Midsommar reference?
Oh, I instantly thought of Midsommar when that happened.
Yeah, I don't know if it's right.
Do you think that was intentionally a Midsommar reference?
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you think there's more than just a wink to the audience? Do you think that's like him saying something about his breakup movie, Midsommar, and like, I don't know. There was some criticism he took about that movie representing an actual breakup of his and how it was unfair to the other person to like make a movie that's as harsh as that one. And then in the press say it was the movie I wrote after this specific breakup. He never named the other person, but like that person knows, type of thing.
I think that's a
I
pretty
think that was
unfair criticism because what was I going to say? Just because you're going through a breakup doesn't mean the movie is about that breakup, you know?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, he wasn't saying it was literally about the breakup, but that breakup inspired him to write Midsommar. He said things in the press like that and then got blowback for it.
Got you.
I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting detail for sure. Okay, so Zach's squarely in the world that this is afterlife. We've exited the normal world of Beau at this point. I think in the back of my mind, I believe he died in the act, and everything after that is afterlife stuff.
Oh, really?
So the
That's what you
mom was
think?
right. You believe that the mom was right the whole time, and she did the right thing by telling him what she told him.
I don't know if she was right the whole time, but I do think he died in that moment.
Got to protect your son.
Right. And the moral of the story is listen to your mother, guys.
I don't know.
It's like Arrested Development, the armless guy. And that's why you call your mom. And that's why we leave a note. That's the joke. There it is.
Do you know Josh, if you had to pick a side on the ending, where are you landing? Where are you leaning?
Oh, I definitely don't think he died in the act, for sure. I just don't think that's consistent with the rest of the film.
Agree.
Okay.
I never thought about it as the afterlife, actually, but
oh, really?
Which it's a bit quite probably obvious, though, if you think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Kyle, Would you just did not care at this point?
Yeah, at this point I was like, where are we going now? Oh, we're gonna pass out on the boat. Where are we gonna wake up this time? Oh, okay.
Did you think there was more to this, or were you pretty sure that was the last scene?
I mean, so yeah, at the very end, right, the boat flips over, and the boat stays over for a long time as Joaquin Phoenix struggles to breathe, and then the boat just and it just sits there, and I was like, okay, so what happens now? And then credits happen. Like, oh, okay, now we leave. Got it.
And you were happy about that?
Yes, my favorite part. But the best part of the movie happened when the credits rolled.
Could someone explain a little minor detail that happened in the end?
Sure.
So her mom is like, has her hands on the railing and then like accidentally pushes off a piece of the railing into the water.
Right.
I didn't understand why that happened. It seemed like an accident.
I don't remember.
But it seemed to like
part.
have some significance.
Yeah, that's a good. I remember seeing that, and like, I thought maybe she was gonna fall in at first or something. But right, she just kind of like leans on the railing and breaks it away.
Yeah.
Did you notice that in her house there were no railings? Like she had this weird house where there was like a floor above another floor.
Yeah, it was dangerous.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting design choice. It didn't really play anything into the movie, but
well, in her house, in her household, you always had to watch your step. You were never 100% safe.
Right, the staircase didn't have railing either, did it?
Right.
It was this railingless house. Yeah.
No, the staircase had it.
Did it? Okay.
But the other floors.
Yeah, but there wasn't like a safety rug or anything. Very slippery wood.
It was very, yeah. You know, those floors look freshly polished, to be honest. So
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure the significance of the railing breaking. That's a good point.
The railing breaking. Was there significance of that?
Yeah.
I don't remember what was being said. I wish, if I was to watch it again, I'd pay more attention to what was being said in that moment, because I'm sure something is said that either angers her or makes her realize something, or I don't know.
How likely are you to watch this movie again?
Oh, I'll watch it again. I don't think I'll watch it like 10 times, but I will definitely give it at least one more.
I'll be buying it. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll be watching it again.
I'll watch again if you guys assign it to me for some like a hangover episode or something like that.
But it's
punishment.
Yes, but by choice, no. This is going up there with the Everything Everywhere All at Once. Not Everything. No, that's a great movie. The other one, You and Me and Everyone We Know. It's gonna go in that bin.
Sure. All right, fair enough. I think the last thing we probably need to talk about is the significance of the audience in that arena, and how I think it's pretty clear that there's like an in-theater audience and in-movie audience like illusion being given here, right? That like you just watched what you watched and now you get to judge it, right? Is that essentially what he's saying there at the end, or did somebody see it any other way?
I did not see that, really.
Yeah, as they're shuffling out, we're shuffling out.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, sure,
Right,
yeah, no, yep.
That was the scene where I was like, what's going to happen now? Because we're looking at the boat, everyone's leaving. And because
you were hooked.
It hangs there for a while. It's good like 15 seconds of just the boat and people leaving, right? And then the credits roll.
Oh, it was. Didn't it stay till the very end of the credits?
The credits roll over the boat.
Oh, I'm sure they did. Yeah. I did not stay that long.
Gotcha. No, it rolls until the very end.
Yeah, I mean, I assumed that's what was happening. So, but I was not going to find out.
It's pretty bleak ending.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, I mean, right. It
another,
is. Like
another way to
he gets
another
judged
way to read
and
this.
He dies at the end of the movie, and he gets judged by his mom, and his mom takes his whole his mom takes the events of the movie, twists them to show how he's a bad person, which he's not. Like I never got the sense through the movie he's a bad person, but the mom takes all these events, shows him in a light to say, "Oh, look how you're a bad person. You take advantage of people. You're not caring," which I don't agree with. And then he dies. I'm like, oh, that's a real bummer of an ending. And like, this is Ari Aster, not like he has uplifting endings per se, but I would say at least in his other movies, the endings are hopeful in a sense, like maybe the events of them.
Hopeful?
Okay, well, okay, so and the Midsommar. Are we ready to talk about? Can we actually talk about good movies now? Can we just like just put a pin in this one and talk about the good stuff?
Sure. I'm pretty much done with this one. Is anybody going to change their rating after this discussion?
I'm at a 4.5 still.
Yeah, I'll do 4.5.
Does anybody want to sum up their feelings after the discussion?
Hated it.
I feel like I want to sum it up.
Please.
Even after talking about this, love this movie. Can't wait to experience it again. And I think I will see a lot more in the second pass that I didn't catch the first time. I'm not sure it'll change my overall thoughts or like the themes that I got from the movie, but I love the idea that he went from like 2 horror movies to this, which is like right up my like weird Kaufman Gondry alley.
Yeah.
And I hope, I mean, I know people love him as a horror director, but I want more of this in general. This kind of weirdness intrigues me more than the Midsommars and the that
Hereditary
people love, Hereditaries of the world. And with that, I'll give it a 5 instead of a 4.
Nice, love it.
5. I think I'm at 5.
Well, since this is a 0-sum game, I have to give it 0 stars apparently. So. No, I think I'm gonna come to a 1.5 on this one.
Okay.
Because there are.
You went up, right? Weren't you?
I was between a 1 and a 1.5.
Okay.
Like
now you're solidly.
Yeah, like a half star is a pretty rare thing to hand out. Like that's a truly hateful reason to not like a movie for very strong purposes. And a 1 star, I don't know. It's hard to what's the change between a 1 and 1.5. I'm not sure, but since there were moments that I did enjoy, they give the half star bump for 1.5. Yeah. Right. But I mean, honestly, once you get below 2, like 2, 1.5, 1/2, what's the difference? It's all crud at that point.
All right. Fair enough. All right, let's just talk a little bit about Ari Aster. Kyle, since you dislike this movie so much, what do you like about Ari Aster?
That's a good point. So I remember seeing Hereditary, which had a ton of buzz around it. Mm-hmm. And I really liked the first like 3/4 of Hereditary and then didn't care for like the final horror act. Like it's a horror movie throughout, but then it goes hard in the horror in that final quarter. And to me, that got a little silly. Like it wasn't scary. It was just like,
it was too specific.
Right.
It just like picked a very specific lane.
Yes. Where like the first 3/4 is this horror family drama, which is scary, but also super effective. And then the last quarter is shock and awe until we get to like the treehouse. And then Midsommar came out, which definitely is a horror movie, right? It also is a lot going on about relationships and this woman becoming her own person. And Midsommar made me actually like Hereditary more because I realized that Hereditary visits a lot of this, I guess, has a lot of the same emotional beats as Midsommar, but is a tighter movie. And I think gets its emotional points across more effectively, where Midsommar does feel long at times. I was hoping that Ari Aster would kind of pivot back towards the Midsommar style of storytelling, where not Midsommar, sorry, the Hereditary style of storytelling, where like I'm going to tell a tight story and it's going to hit all these beats. But instead, I think he like saw Midsommar and he was like, I took my time with Midsommar. It was a little weird. Let's do more of that. So I think he learned the wrong lessons from Midsommar, and all the parts of Midsommar I did not like is what he was doing in this movie. So. Sure. I mean, I guess for me, if he's progressing away from Hereditary, then I am not as excited for what Ari Aster has to do. Whereas after Midsommar, I'm like, okay, I've seen what he can do. Let's see where this goes next. I'm not happy where this one went, and I'm concerned that we're going to get more of this from him.
Josh, as somebody who saw the short film that Beau is Afraid is about, right, which I'm guessing he made before Hereditary.
Yes.
Is Beau is Afraid the short film like just a shorter version of this movie? Like, is that Is Ari Aster Beau is Afraid and like Hereditary and Midsommar are just his horror movies?
No, Beau is Afraid is a short film. I think it's just called Beau.
Mhm.
It's basically just like a short film of the apartment scene, really. A shortened version of
Lots
that.
of anxiety.
Yeah, and I think he loses a key or something, kind of like he does in Beau is Afraid. Yeah, I don't even remember it being horror really, but it's been a long time since I watched it.
Mhm.
But Hereditary.
What's your?
I was gonna say, yeah, Hereditary. Horror, like I love horror. Watch a lot of horror, but ghosty spiritual horror is probably my least go-to subgenre. But I watched it at the theater, and because it's just so well made, I can't help but like it. Definitely, my exact thoughts when I first watched it was the same as like what you guys were saying about the ending. It just didn't, like, it kind of didn't fit the rest of the film a little bit. Like it did, like you were saying, Zach, felt like a different lane. But Toni Collette as well, like, she's a good Aussie actor for sure.
Oh yeah.
One of the best. Yeah, no, she's like one of my favorite actresses. Absolutely. It's hard to compare it to Beau is Afraid. Two so different films, hey, but the craft is up there. Midsommar I quite like as well, but Hereditary I prefer.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I'm kind of the other way around. I liked Midsommar better, for sure. Midsommar was a 4 out of 5 star for me, and Hereditary was, I think, 3 out of 5 star for me. So he's on an upswing. He just gets better and better every movie. I think, undoubtedly, from my perspective, he is a craftsman, right? He can handle a film. Like he puts really striking images on film. He knows how to pace things really well. So I think he's someone that can handle what he's doing. And now let's just hope he has interesting stories to tell.
I
disagree with you on
that he's doing a Western with Joaquin Phoenix. That's what I've heard.
Oh, interesting.
It's gonna be messed up.
I think it's already on Letterboxd, but who knows if it's real.
Huh.
I have to disagree with you on the pacing part. I think his pacing has gotten worse. Like Midsommar definitely had some long stretches that felt unnecessary, and this movie too. There was just some long moments where I was like, this could be tighter.
When did it drag the most for you?
I mean, even the final scene was dragging for me, like of just the boat being in the water. Like that was a moment that was dragging for me right there. There were a lot of him, just a lot of Joaquin Phoenix staring at people and not reacting, frozen. Those were moments that dragged for me. So,
what about in Midsommar? Do you remember when it dragged?
Yeah, so in Midsommar, there are several moments where there's like there are large focuses on on tables and like how people are eating and sort of the ceremony behind how we eat, and it felt very procedural, but it did not enhance the movie in any way. It just more felt like the craftsman side of things. Like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to show this meticulous meal and how we go through the motions of eating it and how we sit down and yada, yada, yada. But it didn't, for me, adds to the actual movie experience or the plot or the story whatsoever. And those were moments.
To me, that was,
go ahead.
To me, that was like just part of the ritual of the society he was living in. Or she was living in, but they were living in.
I mean, I guess for me, I understood that they have rituals, and I did not need to see more and more and more. Like, I get it. You have rituals.
What's this first movie? I know you guys
Hereditary.
have said it 10 times, but I always Hereditary. Hereditary I liked, but a lot of people really freak out about that movie, and I don't understand that level. Personally, I enjoyed it. It was fine. But I definitely didn't attach myself to it or Ari Aster, really. And then I saw Midsommar and I was like, yeah, I like this. That was good. Any movie that can just take. I mean, there's just no other horror movies that can just be in broad daylight like that and still just be, the most dreadful thing you've seen lately type of thing, or dread inducing. And then the way he related it back to not only the failed relationship, but her inability to like have a healthy relationship after what happened with her family. You know what I mean? It's all just kind of a reflection of that, like just how she dove into that relationship on the back of trauma. And yeah, I love that movie. And we've talked about this one a bunch, but I love this one as well. So trajectory for me as well, for sure.
Can I say an upcoming project that Joaquin Phoenix is working on?
Sure.
I'm like diving in IMDb after Josh's comment. Ridley Scott is directing Napoleon.
Yes.
It's already
excited
finished.
for this.
It's already finished.
That's gonna be amazing.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be I think December it's coming out.
There's a 25% chance it will not be amazing.
Ridley Scott is very like he seems to just
chance.
chuck stuff at the wall and see what sticks
Right.
a lot of times. Yeah.
Like we could be getting another Last Duel. We could be getting 1492. Right, so it could go either way here.
Which I kind of like. I'd rather that than like Tarantino, who just does 8 films or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's a better way to do it. I mean, there's no wrong way, but
Josh, you're gonna like this based on your T-shirt. The writer of this Napoleon movie wrote the Man Who Fell to Earth.
Oh, nice.
You guys can see Josh's T-shirt?
Yeah, you can't.
Oh, now I can. Yeah.
I could tell it from the tagline.
You can read the tagline?
Yeah.
Well, that's just a me issue then, I think.
You can't?
I mean, maybe it's you probably have a bigger monitor than I do. I'm on a laptop.
Okay.
Plus, have you seen these prescriptions?
Josh, since we've got you here and since you're a Joaquin Phoenix expert, what's some like lesser known Joaquin Phoenix movies that are worth checking out?
There's a film called Return to Paradise. And if he wasn't in it, if it was a different actor, it would probably just be quite a good film, but his performance in it, he's actually got the least amount of screen time, but his performance in it is like one of his best. It's just insane. It's
nice. Vince Vaughn,
Yes.
Anne Heche,
and it's like
Jada Pinkett Smith.
Yeah, it's got a good cast, and it's got a really good premise, like an interesting premise. It's a decision that has to be made, put it that way.
Can I ask a quick question? Did Anne Heche die?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she
Yes.
crashed her
wasn't
car
sure
into
if
someone's house. She
Okay.
died in a fiery wreck.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty tragic. And she was
I knew she was in an accident, but I didn't know if it was like a Jeremy Renner accident, where he's fine again or what.
No, it was a Paul Walker accident.
Wow. Okay.
There's a really interesting film called It's All About Love. And it went through production hell, like had different writers and all sorts of stuff went on. And it's like a sci-fi, it's a romance set in the future, sci-fi elements, and it's so obscure and it's almost like so bad. It's not good, or it's not so bad it's just terrible. It's so bad that it's interesting. Like that's quite a weird one as well.
Claire Danes and Sean Penn in that one.
Yeah, Sean Penn is like he lives in an airplane and just constantly flies around, like can't land or something. It's an obscure film.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
From the director of Another Round.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And Zach, I know you love watch all the Jesus films. You got to get to Mary Magdalene at some point.
I've been wanting to watch that for years. I think it's going to be incredible. Is it good?
Yeah, I love it. You got to be a bit open-minded with his version of Jesus, but everything. I love the message that's in it. It's quite slow paced, but it's beautiful. Yeah, it's a really well made
Great.
film.
How is Joaquin's Mary?
What's that?
Oh, how does Joaquin do as Mary? Like, is he convincing as Mary Magdalene?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There's a movie on Letterboxd called "There's Something About Mary Magdalene."
Oh my goodness.
Can't imagine what that's
Jesus,
about.
is that hair gel?
There's 3 watches on it. Do you think it's just a joke that somebody put in
No,
the movie database, or do you think it's a real thing?
it's probably a short.
60 minutes.
This is something you guys got to see. It's a 3-minute short, and it's called When Herzog. You know who's the director? Warner Herzog. He's
Yeah.
directed lots of obscure stuff. There's a short film called When Herzog Rescued Phoenix, and it's a true story. It's amazing. Just on YouTube.
And it's 3 minutes long?
Yeah. It's good. Good stuff.
I'll check it out. Sounds great.
I guess I can watch it.
It's 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Oh, I was told 3 minutes.
Why does it have a letterbox entry? This is ridiculous.
Because if it's in the movie database, it gets on Letterboxd. Have you guys seen the movie Don't Look Now with Donald Sutherland from the
Yes.
70s? Okay. That
Yes.
I
Yes.
want Ari Aster to remake that movie because I think that is perfectly up his lane of a combination of like drama and horror and the pain people go through. And I think he could make a very interesting version of Don't Look Now.
I agree.
It is very Ari Aster-y. I reckon he was probably inspired by it.
Right. Yeah.
I think you nailed it. If of any film before his time, I think that one most is his.
Right. Yep.
The question is, Kyle, will you accept it when he turns it up to 13? Because there's no way he's going to make a straight remake of Don't Look Now.
I mean, it depends on what's in the attic.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Awesome. Well, I've watch listed all of those. I will check them out.
Cool.
Thanks for the recommendations, Josh. All right. I guess that's it for this episode 580 of the Cinereelists. We appreciate your listenership. Thanks for hanging in with us. Hopefully you found something interesting about that discussion of Beau is Afraid. We also need to remind you that there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Cinereelists. Find us there and watch while you listen. You could also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Cinereelists. You could leave us an Apple Podcast review, 5 stars only. We'd appreciate that. Or send us a listener email to heyguys@cinereelists.com, REEL with an S on the end. Send us a comment, a question, a list suggestion, a movie suggestion, any of those kinds of things. We love getting via email, and we'll discuss on the podcast on a future episode. You could also follow us on social media at Cinereelists on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or you could follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shaban.
You can find me on Letterboxd at Peter SKB.
Josh, where can the listeners find you online if you want them to?
No one wants to follow me, but I will plug my wife's Instagram page, Beautiful Bipolar. It's a raw look at her living with bipolar. It's good.
Nice.
Nice.
Awesome. I didn't know about that.
We will link that in the show notes. So if anybody's interested in checking it out, it'll be there for you. Next week, we will have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which I'm really looking forward to, for sure. Kyle, are you looking forward to a normal movie?
I'm not going to be here next week, so...
Oh,
Yep,
that's right.
only the weirdos
You
for
won't be
me.
here next week. Oh, right. For sure. Thanks for being here, Josh. We
Yeah, this is
appreciated
awesome.
your perspective.
Loved it. It's good. Good stuff.
We'll have to have you back again at some point.
Napoleon.
Yeah, Napoleon.
Ooh.
Maybe for
Sure,
Napoleon.
Yes.
You can just be the Joaquin
Yeah.
expert from now on.
We need experts. Experts are good.
For sure. Definitely. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Until then, keep it Cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.